Next, we have approval of the minutes of the October 24th, 2018 meeting. I will entertain a motion to approve the minutes of that meeting for anyone that was here.
Mr. Chairman, I move the approval of the minutes of October 24th, 2018, and waive the reading thereof.
Support.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? None. Next, we will move on to public comment. This is for anybody that would like to speak on any issue that we have tonight or just in general. If there's anybody from the public that would like to come to the podium now.
Is it just to speak, or can we ask for comments? I mean, can I ask what's, I live in the
Just come up to the podium and we'll see what we can do. And just state your name and address for the record.
Jerry Johnston, 950 Hickory Creek Drive.
Okay, thank you.
I just really want to know, I'm in the first unit after the northeast property that they want to put a parking lot on. Okay? So my only question, how's it going to affect me? There's going to be a parking lot there instead of the empty lot that they're using for a parking lot anyways? Is that what I'm understanding? If this thing passes or whatever?
Right now, we're voting on whether or not it's a major or minor adjustment to the PUD tonight.
Okay, so what's the difference if it's a major or minor? How is it still going to affect me?
Well, I don't know how it will affect you personally, depending on if you like the idea of a parking lot versus a field that they're using for a parking lot. So it's kind of a
And
personal.
bonfires, which I like, but, okay. Guess I'll just listen.
I came here just to listen to what we're going to do with the nursing home. My name is Larry Slagan-White. I live at 910 Hickory Creek Drive. I'm a retired banker and specialize in real estate development in my career. I find it hard to understand how a subdivision, as big as a subdivision I live in, could only have one entrance and one exit. I called Worley the other day after he sent a letter saying that he's going to turn everything over to the homeowners and ask about the exit that he has said that it's going to happen. And I just kind of want to make sure that he lives up to that before he dumps everything off on the homeowners. And really, that's the only thing.
Mr. Frederick?
Mr. Worley has indicated to me, and I think it's somewhere in our process extension of the Hickory Creek subdivision, there will be an entrance and exit off of Stearns Road.
Okay.
So there will be a second entrance and exit so that it's not all coming out in one way. But that's into the future, and I don't know.
No, what I'm asking is somebody going to follow up on that and make sure it's done.
Well, it's the extension, I'm sorry, the extension of the subdivision has been approved. But I don't know how far along it is. That's, we've had initial discussions is all.
Okay. Okay.
Karen?
They are in the process of the review for the second entrance. For information, just for clarification, the entrance will come off of Stearns Road and work its way east to connect to the subdivision.
Okay.
Because they have to put all of their infrastructure in, so they will work their way east to connect.
Okay.
There will be no additional traffic through the existing exit entrance because all of that traffic will be directed to Stearns Road. There will be no connection until it
If they do that,
moves
yeah,
east.
yeah. If the residents do, yeah. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to speak as far as a public comment? If there are none, we will move on to new business, which is a request to determine if the proposed amendment to the Hickory Creek PUD is a minor or major change located on the east side of Lewis Avenue, south of Stearns Road. Karen, could you give us some background?
Yes. The applicant is PH7 Architects on behalf of Sienna Healthcare. The owner is Aspen Ridge Senior Leasing LLC, and the subject site is 951 Hickory Creek Boulevard. It's currently a PUD with an underlying zoning of RME, elderly housing residential, and the current use is a skilled care facility located on 5.039 acres. On 6/13/2007, the Planning Commission approved the site plan for the existing 37,707 square foot structure. The subject parcel is a part of Hickory Creek Planned Unit Development that was approved on December 16, 1997, with stipulations on the commercial lots A through E. Lot B contains the existing structure, and the proposed employee parking lot would be located on Lot A. Approximately 3 or 4 years ago, the Planning Department was contacted regarding a plan to construct an addition to the existing structure. While the facility was under the same ownership as it is today, the plan was prepared and submitted for review by a different architectural group. At that time, the proposed addition was, 1, approximately 1,500 square feet larger than the now submitted addition, 2, encroached on both the Lewis Avenue and Hickory Creek Boulevard front yard setbacks, and 3, the curb cut off of Hickory Creek Boulevard was eliminated and a direct curb cut was proposed from Lewis Avenue. Detailed review took place by the Planning Department, Monroe County Road Commission, the Bedford Township Fire Department, the Monroe County Drain Commission, the Manikin Smith Group, and Leonard Graham and Goldsmith. At the time the Hickory Creek PUD was approved in 1997, no PUD agreement was prepared and recorded, and stipulations of the PUD approval were identified in the Township Board minutes of December 16, 1997, when the PUD was approved. The minutes clearly state the commercial curb cut should be restricted to the service drive and shall have no direct curb cut from Lewis Avenue. No direct access to Lewis Avenue was also supported by the Monroe County Road Commission for safety purposes. The proposed plan was then amended to reduce the addition size and to place the curb cut off the service drive to the east of the Boulevard Island to enable vehicles leaving the site to make a left onto Hickory Creek Boulevard to Lewis Avenue. The fire department has conducted a cursory review of the ingress-egress and has no objection to the newly proposed curb cut, as the elimination of the parking spaces within the site north of the structure do not negatively impact maneuverability for emergency responders within the parking lot. The parking lot within the subject site has been redesigned to provide visitor parking on site, while staff parking is proposed in the parking lot on the parcel north of Hickory Creek Boulevard. It should be noted the on-site parking will be within the existing retaining wall and fencing along Lewis Avenue. At this time, the applicant is seeking a determination on whether proposed change is a major or minor amendment to the PUD. Section 400-1706A of the zoning ordinance allows for an applicant to seek such a determination. Should the Planning Commission determine the amendment is minor in nature, they can, 1, approve the change without requiring a public hearing and without requiring a submittal to the Township Board, or 2, shall have the authority to determine that a particular change, although a minor PUD plan amendment, is significant enough that it should be referred to the Township Board for final approval. And I want to add something to that, because the Township Board is the only board that has the authority to relax setbacks from a PUD that has already been approved. It will have to go on to the Township Board, whether it is determined a major or a minor amendment, because they will have to act on that as well. In speaking with legal counsel, we would we're going to require a combination restriction agreement for those two parcels, that one can't be sold without the other, creating a parking issue if they would sell the parking parcel without the facility parcel. So those will have to go through a combination restriction agreement, which also the Township Board is the only board that can require that or agree to that. It should also be noted the Planning Department, as a courtesy, as it is not required, mailed out 175 letters to property owners within the Hickory Creek PUD to inform them of the PUD amendment request before the Planning Commission. As of Friday, we had received no calls or inquiries or emails regarding this issue. We do have 2 this evening that did come up and speak earlier. So,
Thank you, Karen. Oh, would applicant like to come up to the podium? Thank you. If you could just state your name and address for the record.
Good evening. Brad Pauling with PH7 Architects on behalf of, Charles Pauling with PH7 Architects on behalf of Hickory Creek and Hickory Ridge Senior Living, and also Aspen Senior Living, the applicant and the property owner. So I'm happy to answer any questions and explain any more about the proposal, but obviously tonight just being a determination on the site plan, I felt that it was probably more appropriate to answer your questions, and I will just say a couple brief remarks on the facility. As Karen mentioned, we, PH7 Architects, were brought to the table by Sienna Healthcare about 6 months ago to start reviewing and processing the proposed plans that were put in place a couple years ago. and evaluate the facility from a mechanical, electrical, plumbing, of vitality of the space itself, and evaluate the number of potential beds that could be added to the site. There is a need and desire for the facility to increase its capacity a little bit. And so we were looking at that in combination with some of the challenges on the site as means of egress and circulation within the parcel. And as we heard earlier from public comment, just the parking on the other side of the street, clearly parking is an issue and demand on the property. And so given the constraints of the land, I know that they acquired the parcel across the street specifically for the need and the ability to provide a permanent solution to their parking concerns. So the combination of improving that land to actually put proper retention, proper parking, doing the proper things that are necessary in conjunction with the addition are really the steps that we're proposing at this time. So I have a couple simple boards. If you haven't seen the drawings, I don't know, I'm happy to share. I thought I'd make myself available for questions. So.
Thank you. You can show us, it'd be nice to.
Obviously, the addition is of the number of beds in the addition also includes some dining and an activity space needs. Across the street, the parking lot consists of about 67 parking spaces. We've included in that a series of elevations and then a proposed rendering at this time. Obviously, we're still in the design process, but we feel that that's pretty indicative of the type of style of the architecture that we would propose for the facility. Obviously, one of the major issues on the table is the setback issue regarding the property itself, and so we realize that the views into the Hickory Creek neighborhood and the facility itself, we feel like the precedent that's set here is there is no other. You're not setting a precedent for a long-term development. This is the only commercial parcel on that property, and then the residential houses that are just inside. I think you'll note on the site plan, we're not too far off of that. So ultimately, we know that the process has to continue on, but today we're answer any other questions you might have.
Mr. Frederick?
How do the employees feel about parking across the street and it's snowing and raining and?
Sure. Would you like to speak on behalf of the facility?
I can answer any facility questions. My name, do you want me to
Yes,
there?
please.
Okay.
If you just
My
state your-
name's Daryl Moore. I'm the administrator at Hickory Ridge, and I actually live in Ohio, way over near Indiana. So I am, the employees now, they like it when they can park right in front of the entrance. So they absolutely love being able to park right in front of our building. But that doesn't mean that in the renderings, there's going to be access for the employees to come in right across the street. So they're not going to have to walk around the outside of the building to get into an employee entrance. So that is part of the plan, is that they'll be able to access the nursing facility right across the street.
Will there be, I've noticed you've put the entrance and exit into the new parking lot immediately across another drive of some sort here, whatever this walk is. Now, will there be some crosswalk designation? Have you worked with the road commission to make sure that there's going to be safety issues there? And the only reason I ask that is one of our township trustees has been arguing for years about putting a stoplight at the intersection of the Hickory Creek Street and Lewis Avenue. It's not been successful, but his concern is that there's a lot of people driving up and down that road, and at certain times of the day, getting in and out is difficult. So what are your plans to make sure that the employees are safe crossing the street?
Yeah, we're reviewing that. PEA Associates has been retained as the civil engineer. They are working with road commission and so forth on the property. I know that the Hickory Creek Boulevard as a whole is under the jurisdiction of the county, if I'm not mistaken. We recognize that there is a crosswalk proposed. I think we need to look at what the lighting is, the issues, the maintenance issues on making sure that, obviously with inclement weather and such, that it is safe. We intentionally pushed it further into Hickory Creek Drive simply so that we're not right at the crosswalk to the subdivision. Putting it in the middle of that of the road is actually a little bit safer than putting it at the end. But it is something that we're conscious and looking at and trying to find the right solution.
Karen, refresh my recollection on which would be the west side of the parking lot. As part of the requirement, and I couldn't find it anywhere, isn't there supposed to be a barrier there, i.e. for people driving in and out with respect to the lights in the middle of the night and whatever? Isn't there supposed to be a fence or some?
On the west side of the parking lot?
East side.
East side.
East side of it?
And west.
There is a berm and buffering that is required when where it is adjacent to
Yeah,
the residential.
Now it's the east side.
Okay.
Okay, I just wanted to refresh my recollection. I have no further questions, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Frederick. Mr. Jenkins?
If this is approved tonight as a minor amendment, it still has to come back as a full site plan, correct? Okay,
Correct.
so these issues will be addressed at that time. And then regarding the east side of the parking lot, I think you're correct, Lamar, they do require some kind of buffering for the residential parcels. So this isn't our last shot at it.
Yeah, I understand that. I just wanted to be sure that was my recollection.
Yeah, and we have not submitted the full landscape plans with this submittal just as of yet, obviously with knowing that,
Yeah, well,
knowing
that would
what
be-
today's activity was, but we would propose a full landscaping plan for both our property and the property adjacent with the parking lot, so. As well as site lighting, other elements like that, so.
I have a question for Karen, I think, or, so the original subject site, that's the original PUD, and all the addition, including the building and the parking lot, is what we're determining if it's major or minor?
The amendment to the existing facility.
So
site.
anything add addition to it, not just, like it wasn't already approved as bigger, so the addition is part of the,
That is correct, and just to give you an idea, the orange line on I'm looking at the larger one that I enlarged just for,
mine's in black and white.
convenience purposes. The orange line, you can see 50-foot front yard setback along Hickory Creek, 77 feet along Lewis Avenue. Of course, the structure is in green, the existing structure is in green. The addition is in the pink. And if you take a look at those distances, just to give you a perspective of distances, the purple is the sidewalk. The building, proposed addition, 32.85 feet. From the curb, it's 32.85 feet, and that is approximately the outside of this design on the floor. So if you look at the triangle on the floor, or excuse me, rectangle on the floor, the outside to the outside is approximately 30 feet. So that'll give you some idea the distance from the structure to the curb. Now, that's not the road right-of-way, but that is to the curb. From the sidewalk, 15.32 feet, so half that distance to the inside of the sidewalk. The building, the proposed addition will not extend any more westward toward Lewis Avenue than the existing structure. It will line up with the existing structure. If you take a look at the renderings that were provided, they did provide them for all sides of the structure. Of course, the north elevation is going to be the along Hickory Creek Boulevard. There are some gable ends on those, that porches that we did take into consideration when we looked at the 32 feet. That setback is from those porches, or those covered porches, I guess they are. And then, of course, the others then would be the east elevation. You can see that will be the extent of where that will be extended to the west, or excuse me, to the north. So, but I just wanted to bring to your attention that there is not just a solid wall that will be along that Hickory Creek Boulevard. It does have windows and doors and covered porches for that. So, just to give you an idea of what that setback from the curb is, it is in this room.
Thank you, Karen. I think the drawings look wonderful. I'm just having a hard time thinking that this is just a minor addition is my main concern.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Ms. Jenkins.
Karen, is the lot where the parking lot's on, is that in the PUD?
It is.
It is, okay.
And it is under their ownership as well.
I should know that.
I asked that question a week ago, because I didn't know it either.
And to the proposed addition, 10,750 square feet, and I believe it's 12 beds?
Yeah, it's a combination. There are some semi-privates in that, and I did not provide in those boards the actual floor plan, but we obviously have developed a little bit more of a detailed floor plan. There's 16 total beds that we're proposing. 3 of those are what we're calling deluxe privates, and the other 13 are actually privates. So I misspoke. I'm sorry. They're all private rooms. So I think the previous submittal that was put in front a couple years ago, I think had upwards of 20 or 24, and so part of what we were trying to do is make the addition smaller, and looking at the demographics of the facility, we think it still can support that. So.
Sorry, Mr. Kempreth.
Maybe I could share some observations as to this whole project and the process, being this is one of the original PUDs in Bedford Township. And as Karen stated initially, there is no PUD agreement that's recorded at the Register of Deeds office like what we do now. So all we have to rely upon is the minutes from 1997. Mr. Frederick was supervisor at that point in time, but all the conditions for the approval of the PUD were contained in those minutes rather than a recorded instrument, which is a PUD agreement with a plan like what you see here attached to it as an exhibit. What's before the commission is, yes, to determine whether this is a major PUD amendment, which means if it's a major amendment, they have to go through the entire process, a public hearing. The zoning is already there, but go through a public hearing and plan reviews and planning commission and to the township board like a normal PUD would have to go through. The other alternatives would be that it's a minor amendment and the planning commission can approve a minor change to a site plan if it doesn't impact the project or the citizens or neighbors. A third alternative, which Karen mentioned, and which I'm recommending here because I don't see any alternative, is you determine that it's a minor amendment, which means that we don't have to have a public hearing, we don't have to go through the standard review process. However, you refer it to the township board. That's kind of the middle of the road option that I don't know if we've ever used that, but it is set forth in the ordinance and contemplated by the drafter of the ordinance. And there's really 2 reasons why that is important. Because the PUD ordinance itself says that setbacks may be relaxed by the township board. So I read that as being that the planning commission doesn't have authority to relax setbacks. It's a 50-foot setback from Hickory Creek, and they are asking for a 20 or 30-foot variance of that. And when I say variance, that's unique to the jurisdiction of the Board of Zoning Appeals. However, there's also a section in this ordinance that says the Board of Zoning Appeals has no jurisdiction over PUD projects. So that relaxation of setbacks exclusively falls within the jurisdiction of the Township Board. The other issue with this project is that the second parcel where the parking lot will be is a commercially zoned parcel, and they're proposing its principal use as being parking. Normally, parking is an accessory use to a principal use, and in this case, all they're going to use it for is parking. And they need those parking spaces because they're eliminating some parking spaces with the building expansion. So they have to do a calculation of parking spaces of what's needed, and therefore they need the second parcel to satisfy their parking requirements. And as Karen mentioned, what we don't want to happen is for that parcel to be separated or sold separately from the Hickory Creek parcel to eliminate their parking, which is required for their development. So that is similar to one of the reasons or motivations that we typically enter into a land combination agreement. If one person owns two separate subdivision lots, wants to build a garage or a swimming pool on the adjacent parcel, which would be an accessory use to the principal residence on the first parcel, well, we don't want those two parcels to be ever separated, making a non-conforming swimming pool on one lot with no principal residence. And we don't want them to sell one off, or we don't want it to inadvertently be separated because one parcel is mortgaged with a bank and the other parcel is not subject to a mortgage. They default on the mortgage, and the second parcel is foreclosed on, thus inadvertently separating the parcels, leaving the foreclosed parcel with a swimming pool and no residence. So those are some of the reasons and motivations why we enter into a combination agreement. That only applies to adjacent parcels. We don't have adjacent parcels here. We have two parcels separated by a public road. So land combinations don't work. This, however, is we have a unique opportunity to take advantage of the PUD. PUD, if we have a PUD agreement, we can shape it to look and do the things that we normally put in a land combination agreement. We can put those restrictions or requirements into a PUD agreement and record that like we would a land combination agreement. So that's the second reason to refer it to the Township Board. They would be the body that would approve the PUD agreement and sign it along with the developer, so we can record that to prevent the two parcels from ever being separated. In other words, the parking lot being sold and used or more foreclosed on and used for some other purpose, thus losing all the required parking they need for their expanded development. So, in summary, and I'll take any questions, I would recommend that if you were seeing this as a minor amendment, that you would refer this to the Township Board next to get their blessing on the relaxation of the setbacks, if that's what you recommend, and if they see fit. Also, so that they would then have, it would be in front of them to approve what I would recommend is preparation and recording of a PUD agreement that is not in existence for this project, but it would be exclusive to these two parcels, not necessarily the rest of the entire global PUD. Did I confuse you?
No, that makes it
A lot of stuff going on.
It's because we don't have an official PUD that this kind of all originated.
We don't have a PUD agreement.
Right.
Right.
I forgot that, yeah.
Mr. Jenkins?
Back then, we were just struggling through all of this because we were debating whether we were going to go to,
Tripping over
yeah,
myself.
I remember that.
I was struggling with this too, but looking at this as a fairly small part of a much larger PUD. I guess I don't have as much of a problem with it. I do think that amending the PUD would be an insurmountable task, knowing what the requirements are. So I'm prepared to make a motion. I can make a motion that the Planning Commission determine that this is a minor change to the original PUD and to refer it to the Township Board regarding the relaxed setbacks, and the Township Board work on preparing a PUD agreement. Anything else?
Inform approved by Township Council.
Yeah, that too.
With the purpose of combining those parcels, even though they can't physically be combined because there's a public road separating them, but to restrict the sale or mortgage or encumbrance of those 2 parcels other than together. That's the point.
And Karen, we are 1 member short, so it still needs to be a majority, correct? So just let you know, we are 1 member short tonight, so if you would like to proceed with the vote.
Yeah, you can proceed.
Thank you. We need a 4-member majority, so. So I have a motion. Do we have support?
Second.
Karen, can you call the roll?
Mr. Jenkins?
Yes.
Mr. Frederick?
Yes.
Mr. Fritz?
Yes.
Mr. Garver?
Yes.
Mr. Zebek?
Yes.
Mr. Anger?
Yes.
Motion carried.
Thank you.
Go forth and multiply.
Thank you so much. Appreciate the comments.
Next we have on the agenda is public comment. This is for anybody that would like to make a comment to anything tonight.
This is what they mentioned it here, but the lighting at the entrance of Hickory Ridge is, Hickory Creek, I'm sorry, is bad. I talked to the contractor, and he said it's solar, and so you can't even see the entrance. And I think it's very dangerous, and I think something should be done for some lighting around the entrance. He said there's no wiring there, and they couldn't do anything about it. Well, I don't know if that's completely right or not, but I think something should be done with the lighting, because it's very dangerous going in and out of there at night for a lot of people.
I think that's under the jurisdiction of the Road Commission.
Is it really? Okay.
Yes, and so there's where your complaint should be directed.
Okay.
Because in Michigan, townships have no responsibility for public roads. So we could pass along your concern, but you'd be better off talking to them directly.
I have several people I know at the road commission, so I can
Then
take care
get all of them together.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else like to make a public comment? Okay. Yeah, seeing that there is, seeing that there is none, we'll move on to new information. Any new information, Karen?
We will have a meeting on the 28th. Currently, we have 2 public hearings scheduled for that evening.
I think
Maybe others, but there will be one on the 28th. We will have a new member at that meeting, Mr. Frederick. This will be his last meeting.
Is there any staff or commission comment? Mr. Frederick?
Well, I was at the Douglas Road School when we were recognizing all the veterans. And I was in charge of parading with the American flag. And if you see at the top of the flag, there's an eagle. The veterans of foreign wars were walking around, and I'm carrying the American flag, and I'm watching the guy in front of me because that's what you're supposed to do. And just as I was getting within about 15 feet of being stopped, the eagle got caught in a basketball net. And there I stood. And Dan, who's not here, came to our rescue and jumped up on a chair and got the net off of the eagle. And the reason you have to be careful is because those wings break off very easily. So I was going to thank him again for saving my flag. But again, as I always say, let's not think one day about veterans, let's think about veterans every day. Some of them are coming up on holidays, and I'm sure Mr. Fritz and I remember vividly being away from home for Thanksgiving and or Christmas, and sitting around with a bunch of guys who were moping at the same time we were. So think about them at Thanksgiving, think about them at Christmas. They're out there doing their duty, and they volunteered, most of them. And I would hope we would think about them in good light as these holidays come up. Thank you.
I would like to say thank you for your service, both military and on the planning commission, and you will be missed, so thanks.
Thank you.
I have nothing.
All right. With that, I will entertain a motion to adjourn. I have a motion. Do I have support?
Good luck, Lamar.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All, none opposed.